Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? So, we're back at Finch Farm again today. We're going to build a workshop in our little scrapyard here, as I'd like to see some robots wandering around the place, and a little bit of a crafting area should fit right in. So, if you like what you see, do hit that big red button. Let's get stuck in. Okay. So, I'm going to focus on warehouse species for this one. It's a relatively simple build, but as I said on Twitter earlier, the devil's in the details. And as always, it's the details that make it, so just make sure that workbench is going to fit, which clearly it wouldn't on there. Yes, so the original plan was to position it behind the main house here, sort of off to the left there. But it's not going to fit in the end, as we'll see in just a moment. So, either way, it would be awkward to build in that space anyway, so the plan is to set up out here, at least with the foundations and the main building, and just select all and move it into place from there. So I'll get the floor put together. I'm going to end up falling off this half a dozen times, which is absolutely typical, but there we go. So, plan is a little enclosed workshop area in the back left corner here with an open air crafting space around the outside. So these warehouse pieces are very helpful with their snapping. You just position them either side of the line there, which is just very handy and I hadn't anticipated, so definite bonus. I'm going to mix up the textures a little bit, keep things interesting. There we go. And get this one in there, eventually. There we go. So, obviously this is a relatively simple boxy structure. And yep, that's going to look good, but I'd be a right pain in the neck right now. So I'll get that out of the way. Let's see the problem right there. Yeah, so to avoid it being too boxy, I thought I'd put an angled roof on it to break up the pattern a little bit. And the order of the day here is build order. As you can do quite a lot with these warehouse pieces, but if you try and put it together in the wrong order, it just won't cooperate. So we'll get our framework in place with the walls here. And stick the upper level on there. There we go. The roof goes in nice and easy, but we need a vertical piece between the two. And that won't go in after the fact. And as we'll see in a second, it won't go in on its own either. So we'll have to put something in to provide a base for it to snap to. Yeah, see? Not a hint of snapping. Nothing's ever easy. So, any old wall will do. Stick the half wall on top. And there we have it, nice and easy. And at this stage, the next one will snap in, no problem at all, so whip that superfluous door out of the way, and we'll put the roof back on. Unfortunately, as you can see there, the roof does clip right through, which is kind of annoying, and I was sure I could like work around, but nope, I've been defeated on that point, so slight clippage we'll have to deal with. But it still looks good anyway, so yeah, what the hell. If I can ever get back off the ground. Oh well, didn't need to. Or did I do it? I forget. Oh well, we'll close that off. I've never found a use for those particularly thin triangle pieces yet. There we go. So, group select, concrete pillar, simple as you like, and oh look, there we go. Nowhere near enough room. So, it's going over here instead. Which actually turned out to be pretty successful, so I'm quite happy with that. So the trick here is to make sure you can see along the back edge, whilst at the same time making sure that the mesh floor at the front isn't clipping through the ground. So the job being to be able to get precise enough aim whilst being stood further enough back rather to see both ends. So here we go. Just about works. I don't want it clipping through the floor as I've got plans for it, so There we go, one very floaty workshop, or the basis of one anyway. So, we need to provide some kind of support and close off the under area. Now, first thought, as you can see, was to use the modded stone textures on the wall pieces there. They're actually wooden walls, but they end up looking terrible. As when you stand on top, there's clearly no support underneath, and as you can see, sort of both sides of the wooden wall pieces, abundantly clear that it's not actually made of stone, which is far too thin. The same textures are available in the concrete tab if you've got USO anyway. USO? Yes, right one. However, it comes with the metal frame around the outside of it, much like the concrete pillar there, and it just doesn't look the part. So we scrapped that idea and moved on to a new one. So I thought, keeping with the junky theme, we'll stick some random bits and pieces underneath to provide support for the floor. So I'm going to start off with the boxcar, which very conveniently has a nice flat top to it, sort of anyway. But that section in the middle there is just wide enough to look like it's supporting the floor, so in it goes. A little bit of group select, nudge it up a little bit. Don't want it clipping through, but it will rest quite nicely on the bottom. Eventually. One could use this as storage space if you wanted, but I decided to stick with it as a simple support. And there we go. Grab a shipping container and use the same principle. Trick here is to make sure your concrete pillar is as far back as you can, because when you've got a small space like that and you haven't got enough clearance over the top of it, which is the other thing to bear in mind, it will be prone to jumping up on top of the floor, which is very not helpful. So, there we go. Nice scrappy and supported. And you can see through the floor that it's very improvised, which I like. So, with plan A failing for blocking up the edges, we're going to go for an oldie but a goodie with junk fences. These modded ones, added by USO, the smaller ones here, a couple of them, as you can see, have nice flat tops to them. There's a couple of them don't, they have the posts sticking up a bit further, but these should look like they provide a nice flat support. Look like they're also contributing to the stability of the thing. They end up being reverse junk fences, which was not specifically intentional, but it just sort of fit in the space better. But it looks good, so there we go. So we'll plan ahead and stick a few of them on rugs now, save some faffing around time later. These things are very, very cooperative, which is very, very handy. There we go, straight away, nice and easy. So, grab it with a concrete pillar, and we're at the back corner where we initially positioned the building from. As you can see, that is a very confined space. You're actually looking at about my third attempt to get this in, because the pillar was just too far back. So it's actually well within the edges of the supports there. Unfortunately, the walls are not quite as wide as the floor pieces, which is strange, but there we go. Just swap that pillar around, as obviously there's not enough room behind it. I'll figure out what's going on anyway. Oh yes, I see. Moved it over to the corner as well, so there's a bit more room to work with. So we'll slide this one in with the same principle. It's kind of hard to see, but fortunately with the clear wooden frame on this, it makes it a little bit easier to line things up. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I can just about. There's actually a gap between the two chunk walls there. Just about see it through the floor there. So I'll nudge it a bit closer. Typically the model robot stand, I think that one is, decides to come along with it, but it doesn't leave any gaps, so it's not a major problem. Slot the next one in, same principle, and same problem as well. There we go. Always make sure that bottom edge of your concrete pillar is just below the surface of the ground, at the very least below the surface of the rug, otherwise it won't sink. Nudge up a bit closer so we can actually see what we're doing. There we go. As you can see, it doesn't quite make it to the edge, so we'll just glitch one more in there as well. Nice and easy. This front edge is exactly the same principle, but use wooden ones instead. So this little trick I was reminded of by one of my subscribers when I was looking at one of their videos recently, which I think was Fiesta Awesome, but I can't quite remember, so apologies if I've got that wrong, and apologies for not remembering so well if I got it right. But it's a very cool idea, which I've seen done before, but I've never actually done myself before, so I thought I'd give it a go for this. This is actually a barn roof rather than a warehouse one. The warehouse ones, for some reason, don't appear to be made of metal. At this stage, I wasn't quite sure, however, if the settlers and any future robots were actually going to path up it. So typically, when I test it, he just decides to go and face the wall, which is very, very helpful of him. Thank you very much, Mr. Finch. On the other hand, this time he walked up there, so clearly it does work. This middle one went in nice and easy, no problem whatsoever, exactly the same as the last one. However, number 3 here was not quite so cooperative. So you can see the house there is actually on wooden foundations, effectively. And they sink below the level of the ground, and the roof piece just hits the legs there and won't go in. So we've got a little bit of a short reach on the left edge there. But it'll do. Snap one of the edges on there, tidy it off. But for the same reason I had to nudge that over, obviously this won't go in either. Oh well, bit of scrappy's fine. So close up the last few gaps, ended up settling on cinder blocks. Thought about tyres and various other bits and pieces, but cinder blocks look like they provide a bit more support, so I chose those. You can use a couple of different styles of them just to mix and match a bit, keep things interesting. And once you've got the right angle, especially if you're looking from above, because it makes this a lot easier. These are dead easy to slot in there. Both the warehouse pieces and the cinder blocks are relatively forgiving, which is a very handy combination. So get it in place, just make sure it's resting on the top, not clipping through the woodwork, and there we go. Dead easy. Same thing around this side, again mix up the patterns a little bit. Straight in. And the next one. You see I've chopped out a lot of fiddling around time, but I'm sure you've got the idea. These single cinder blocks are good for sort of plugging up gaps, creating sort of unique shapes. Which is, again, because they're nice and soft, look at that. Very easy to plug the gap with it. There we go. Now I'll just put it on a bit of a tilt, make it look a little bit more organic. It even acts like a rug, isn't that nice and convenient of it? There we go. So it's not supported all the way along, but it really doesn't need to be. Now this bit is, to be honest, relatively pointless. You're not going to be able to see these supports at all once the building's finished. On the other hand, I wanted them there more for the sake of knowing they're there and that the middle of the floor supported. So, dead easy, floor out, snap in, floor back in. It turned out it was very, very cooperative about that. Apart from that bit, anyway. There we go. I did wonder if it might be reluctant to snap back in afterwards, but not at all. Now we'll slap the door on and get back to daylight. Wonderful. Just stick a few railings down. I was going to show a little bit more of the decoration because I felt like this was a very simple basic build, but there's a bit more to it than it really felt like when I actually did it, so we'll skip over most of the decoration. Stick some railings down, change my mind very quickly, so you get a general idea of what I've done here. I did consider a couple of options in place of these cinder blocks on the edge here, but they do give it a nice solid feel, which I quite like, especially at the back edge here. I'll jump over onto the tank to line that up so we've got maximum space on the inside, which probably isn't really necessary, but my obsession with neatness notwithstanding, it seemed like the way to go. There we go. And go on there. So, I'm going to stick a switch on the door here, just because when it comes to powered doors I can possibly feel the need to be able to open and close them, even though this is basically going to spend all its time open, because the settlers won't use the switches, so if you actually want them to go in and interact with stuff, then which is kind of the idea after I've gotten all the effort of making sure that they'll path up here. But, yeah, so you need to basically leave the door open or not use the switch. But for aesthetic purposes, so we're going to put the conduit underneath, so we haven't got wires trailing all over the place. Pull bits and pieces out of the way, and then just wire glitch over to the generator that's sunk into the junk pile there. Being Abraham Finch's junk pile, we're going to definitely leave that there as it's part of the lore of Finch Farm. Nudge this one up. I'm going to steadily add to that junk pile as time goes on, by the way, which is why I sunk the generator into it. I don't know if I'll continue to use the generator long term, or put another one in somewhere, but that one can stay there anyway. Yep. Tuck the workbenches in. Whilst these are armour and weapon workbenches, they're basically usable for a lot more than simply making armour and weapons, well, based on the design of them anyway, so I feel they fit the setting quite well. And let's take a look around the finished product. I've done some junk decoration. The slanted roof takes away from the boxiness of it all. Nice scrappy improvised platform there. Looks nice and sturdy, but also suitably improvised as well, which is emphasised by using roof pieces as a ramp as well. Had thought about using scaffolding ramps, but I like the look of that a lot better. Some silly random bits and pieces with junk decoration there. Tim Timmons Make Static is very, very handy. It's fiddly, but it gives you a lot more versatility with the junk decoration, which I really like.
Commonwealth ain't never seen a scavenger like my father. I promise you that.
Now, I had wanted to use a USO robot scavenging station in here, but they've got this infuriating habit of falling over. So I ended up ditching that idea and just standing him on a painting scavenging mat, so I'll do that instead. So I've actually got one of the settlers assigned to this place. Tons of stuff added onto the shelves, a few useful bits and pieces in the back. Can't really see it, but those antifreeze bottles are sat in a shopping basket. Modded paint mixer, because why not? And there we go. So, thank you very much for watching as always. If you'd like to find me on social media, keep up to date with what's going on with the channel. I'm on Twitter and Facebook at /DarthXionGames. And I will be speaking to you very soon. Thank you very much.